Alright, so let's talk about Adobe Illustrator. I know you have used this program before, but it has probably been a while since you've used it. So I want to go back and go over some of the fundamentals before we really start moving into Illustrator. First, we need to understand the interface of Illustrator. So that is this top bar at the top, the toolbars on the left, the workspace and panels on the right-hand side. All of these will help you create what you're looking to create in an easier fashion. So we need to start with the basics. What are the toolbars? The toolbars contain the tools that let you create, select, and manipulate your objects. They live right here. Now, as you see, I have a fairly basic set of tools here, and that's what it's called, the basic set. There are more advanced tools. Most of the time doing what we do, we're going to live inside these basic tools. But every here and there, I'm going to need you to use some of these advanced tools. So to find this advanced toolbar, you're going to go up to Window, Toolbars, which it feels like it should be alphabetical, but it's not. These sections are more towards the top. These are the more important areas. We're going to go to Advanced. That gets the more advanced toolbar. That being said, we need to understand that toolbar. We're going to go through a lot of these tools throughout this course, but down here at the bottom, we've got this option for fill and stroke colors. So fill colors are the inside of a shape, strokes are the outside. Hit L on your keyboard, that gets you your ellipse tool. Click on this left artboard right here, hold and drag to create an oval of some form. Now, just as a reminder of your selection tools are there to help you select specific parts of a shape. So if I get my black arrow, V is my shortcut, I'm going to see a bounding box show up around this shape. That bounding box allows me to manipulate that shape in a few different ways. I can change the proportion of it. I can rotate it if I hover at a corner. I can hold shift on this corner and make it bigger if I want. I can make it very much smaller if I want. It's entirely up to you what you want to use this tool for. But one thing you can't use it for is to manipulate the anchors themselves. I can't turn this oval into a square like this. Now, if you hit A on your keyboard, that gets your white arrow. When you click on any one of these points, what you're going to see is a handlebar. So just to zoom in so we can see these handlebars, these are handlebars. These allow the curve of this shape. So the handlebar on the left affects the left curve. The handlebar on the right affects the right curve. You can have these going all kinds of ways. They can loop on top of each other. But the better you control these handlebars, the better your shapes are going to look, the smoother they're going to look. So feel free to make a shape that you would like, some wonky looking shape. You can also drag these handlebars in so that they have no curve whatsoever. If you put them right on that anchor, you'll have no curve at all. Sometimes you'll see these little circle items on hard corners like this. These little circles allow you to round this corner, which will smooth that out. So using this, you can create all kinds of different shapes. The white arrow is what allows you to do that. Without that white arrow, you're not going to affect those anchor points in a way that you can do anything with it. Now with that shape selected, hit V, get your black arrow. I want you to change your fill color. I want you to change it to whatever color you want it to be. Then I want you to change your stroke color to whatever color you want it to be. You can use these sliders right here if you would want. There are a bunch of different panels that will allow you to find these colors, or you can double click and find the color you'd like. Now the stroke is the area that lives on the outside of this line. So that's basically the path that originally existed. If I click on this, hit A, I can see that red path goes directly through that green line. Now, we need, or I would like to have at least, your control panel to be able to do our next steps. So the control panel, sometimes known as the options bar, is the bar that lives at the top that affects the things you have selected or the tools that you have currently in place. So if you hit Window at the top, this time go to Control. There is no little arrow to the right of this. You're just going to click on this. That's going to open up your control panel at the top. I find this a quick, easy way to do things. At the top, with this shape selected, now if I don't have it selected, it's not going to work, so select the shape. I'm going to look at my fill. I can see the colors here as well. I can change those here if I were to like to. I can also see my stroke. So on my stroke, I can change the size of this to be a bigger stroke. There are a number of different ways to do this. I could go through the stroke panel, of course, but right here it's just easier in the control panel. The control panel also links to other panels. If I hover over the word stroke, it says stroke panel. If I click on that, it gives me the entire stroke panel. Now, if I were to go to window right here and look for stroke, there it is. I see a shorter version, or if I click on it, I see the exact same things. There is not a difference between these two things. So it just makes life easier for you if you use it in the control panel. Now, underneath that stroke option, I want you to see that you've got options to round the edge of these shapes. Now, mine's a full shape. It won't make a difference. I can alter the corners. I can also align to the inside, dash it, or I can add little uniform looks to this to give it a variable weight to its general stroke line. Notice opacity is similar. It gives you an option to open that opacity panel as well. You have blending modes, very similar to Photoshop. These blending modes work on all of your shapes. In fact, if you look at the background on this document, this little thing here is a blending mode. That's what gives me these colors. This is what a Mac main menu looks like, but up here at the top of mine, you can see my main menu matches it pretty closely. So if I hit File, or I hit Edit, or I hit Object, I can see the different objects changes that I can make. I can also see the shortcuts beside a lot of these. So these shortcuts allow you to make quicker moves by holding buttons instead of going up here trying to find that exact thing. I'm sure at this point you understand that Control Z or Command Z goes back one step. That's my favorite shortcut in the world. Beats the heck out of coming up here hitting Edit, Undo, Edit, Undo. So there are a number of ways to play with your main menu. But Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, most of the Adobe programs rely on a sense of kind of logic when it comes to these. If I'm dealing with something I have selected like this, I might want to go to my select options, right? If I want to add an effect, I'll go to an effect. If I want to play with my type, I'll go with my type. If I want to edit the way the shape looks or is, I can hit edit. If I want to choose object, this might choose the relationship between multiple objects, right? So it deals a little bit in logic. Now on the right hand side over here, I have 3 panels currently open. This is the default Essentials workspace. Most of the time you can deal inside of Properties. Most of the time Properties panel is all you need. You will occasionally need your Layers panel. And while we're at it, I would go ahead and hit Window and get your Artboards panel as well. Now the Artboards panel, I'm going to click on this little tab, hold, and drag to my right side until I see the whole box light up blue. I'm going to put these tabs right next to each other. When I release, that'll show up here. Now I'm not going to use any libraries or assets exports, so I'm just going to drag those off and exit those out. So I've got Layers, Artboards, Properties. While we're at it, let's look at the layers. Most documents that you're going to get from me are going to have a workspace that's going to be locked. There may be a couple of things unlocked. So make sure when you're in the layers that you don't accidentally unlock the workspace. If you do that, all of a sudden you can start moving things and it's going to look like a big mess here. So leave that locked. Stay on that top layer. So these 3 panels right here represent your actual workspace currently. If I go up to this option right here, or if I go under Windows, Workspace, I can save this workspace by calling it something new. I can name it, I can hit OK, I can always come back to this workspace. Or under Window, you can see that there are other workspaces that exist. So if you're doing painting inside of Illustrator, maybe you want the painting section. These are going to give you panels that might be more advantageous for you to use. I recommend sticking on Essentials at least for the start. As you need more panels, remember they live under Window. You can see the long list of them down here. So anytime you need one, just hit Window and find that panel. You can also add them right here to this kind of central stack. So your minor panels that you don't use as often, such as comments right there, you can kind of put on this little line right here. So that's the difference between a panel and the overall workspace, the panel arrangement. Now, working inside of Illustrator, if I zoom out right here and I hit the eyeball on my layers, you can see this little box right here. This box represents my artboard. I have one of them. If I hit my artboard tool, I can see the box that lights that up. I can hover on my artboard right here. I can see the size of this artboard. I can add as many artboards as I want if I want a bunch of artboards. So artboards are going to be something that you are going to play around with a lot. One of the benefits to Adobe Illustrator is that you can have hundreds of artboards in here and have hundreds of designs all right here that you can very quickly export one of them if need be. So I'm just going to leave this like it is, staying on layer 2. I'm going to turn layer 2 on. Now currently we want to work on artboard number 2 right here. And I just want to look at what this would look like. Now, when working in class, what you are focusing on is a few different design principles, which we need to kind of emphasize and go over. The main ones are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. That is crap. Good design is crap. You want to keep that in all things you do. So let's look at how we can create that. What we're going to do is we're going to make a rough version of a playing card here. So playing cards are like ace, king, queen, jack, right? So we're going to use this artboard right here to represent our playing card. First thing I want you to do is I want you to create a shape, a rectangle that covers this entire artboard. Now the tool for that is your rectangle tool. M is the shortcut. I want this shape to have a stroke of a color that you can see, and I want it to have a fill of none. That's what I'm looking for. Now on a playing card, and you can see some of my panels have opened up here. On a playing card, what you're looking for is a symbol in the corner, like K for king, Q for queen, a letter, a number. Underneath that, you've got a suit in the corner. That allows you to kind of peel up that corner and see what it is. Not only do I want it on this corner, I want it on this corner in reverse. So I want two different things here. So I want you to grab your type tool, T for type tool. I want you to click one time and I want you to type a capital K to get me a king. And then I want to change the font. Now there are 100 different ways to find fonts. You can find a font that you like. Feel free to play around with it and see what works for you. Make sure that you're always downloading unique fonts because there's nothing more boring than a boring font. So I'm just going to go with this old school Gothic looking K and I'm going to place it here. Now, anytime I'm working inside of a playing card like this, I need to duplicate everything to the other side. So I could go ahead and copy this down to here and flip it. But the reason I'm not going to do that is because I'm going to create a suit underneath this first. So my K, my king, is going to be red. What we're going to do is we're going to make the king of hearts. So give me a red K. All right. I'm going to get my pen tool and I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this. What I'm going to create right now is a very small V shape. 1, 2, 3. With my pen tool, use those pink lines to kind of identify where things need to be. So give me a little small V like this. What we're going to do is make this little V shape into a heart. Let me see if I can line this up. It is fighting me. I can grab both of these right here and I can align these right here if I want to. So I'm going to grab this shape. I'm going to flip the stroke so that it's got a red stroke. I'm going to push the stroke up and you see I'm already kind of getting a heart shape. But under stroke, I'm going to choose the cap that is rounded. By doing so, I get these nice rounded points. I'm going to blow up the stroke a little bit more so I get a nice heart shape. You see mine's fairly large. I'm going to shrink it down. Now I've got this V shape in the middle and this is how I can manipulate this shape. Now however, this might create some issues for me. If I shrink it down, my stroke doesn't get any smaller. Not by default anyway. Alright, so if I go over here to my properties, I have an option that says Scale, Strokes, and Effects. Let's see if that wants to work for me. I'll shrink that down holding Shift, and it does. I don't get that extra bold look. But this can still be annoying trying to grab this V. Instead of doing it this way, what I want to do is go up to Object at the top, Expand, and I want to expand my stroke. So do it just like that. Now I have my King of Hearts. Well, I want to shrink this down a little bit. Make sure it's only as wide as your K. Make sure it's kind of underneath it. Now, the P in crap is proximity. Things that belong together should be together. I need to know that this is a king. I also need to know that it's a heart, the king of hearts. That makes a difference in my hand. Proximity of these two things needs to be together. If I had the heart down here at the bottom, I could turn this corner and only see that this is a king. A red one, but that could be the king of diamonds too. So having these together is essential. Now that I've got one, I'm going to grab both, hold Option, drag to the other corner, and rotate this. Now, I am making a playing card. Most people see 12-point fonts without real problems. So if I look at this king, I do have it set to a 12-point font. Add a playing card, I recommend being bigger than that. The best-selling playing cards are generally the large format cards, but for this example, this is fine. Now, for face cards, there's usually a rectangle in the center of the card. So I want you to make a rectangle in the center of this card. And you can turn this red stroked with no fill, just like this. Now, the A in crap is alignment. You want things to be aligned properly. If this box is over here like this is going to look like a mistake, right? So I need to make sure that I am centered. If I have an artboard set and you kind of bounce around, you'll see all these pink lines popping up and down. In the middle of it, you might see a little bit of a pink X on your setup. That is going to be the dead center of your object, and if you land it just right, it may say center right here, but it may not. A quick, easy way to align is to have two different shapes, grab them both, and to align them using your alignment options up at the top. You may see a little bit of a wiggle. That just shows that it's working. So now this box is aligned to the center. So let's look at alignment. Let's say this isn't a king. Let's change this to a 9. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to type, ooh, that's an ugly 9 in that font. Let's make it an 8. That's still ugly. 9 it is. So I'm going to make this a 9. And I'm going to create 9 heart shapes in the middle here. So I need to duplicate. Hold Option, click and drag, or Control or Command C, Control or Command V to paste. I'm going to hold Option, click and drag over here as well. So I've got 2 of these. So duplicating your shapes is easy. I can duplicate pairs of shapes as well, dragging these 2 down. Maybe I want all 4 of these, and I want to flip these so that I've got them down here and flip those around. That way it looks the same both ways. Now I do need one in the middle, and there's very few ways around this. That one in the middle is generally going to end up one way or the other. Now looking at this, do these look aligned properly, or does something look off about these? Do these look a little closer to this guy than they should be? Do these look a little off to the side from this one? Alignment is a tricky thing. So one thing I want to do is I want to align all 4 of these to be equally spaced from each other. Now up here at the top I get alignment options. Over on the right I get alignment options too. If you open your alignment options, you get all of them that you see at the top if your screen's big enough to see the ones at the top. So I'm going to hit center right here. I need them all centered. They should already be there anyway. But there's also an option to distribute this based on its vertical center. So if I click right here, watch what happens. The 2 middle ones are going to get a little closer. There's going to be an equal amount of spacing between all 4 of these. Maybe I want to do the same on these 4, so that way they are matching each other. Then I can grab all 4 of these on both sides, so all 8, excuse me. I can group these. All of these are in one group now, so Command G or Control G will group them. Then I can grab this guy in the middle, and I can just use my vertical alignment options to put him in the dead center. Grouping all of those. I can grab all of this information and align these all to be dead center. So there are 100 ways to align things to be proper. And if it drives you nuts that they're grouped after you're done, you can just hit Object, Ungroup, right? So you understand the idea of this alignment. One of the bigger tricks when dealing with playing cards specifically is that if you're going to align these things, I don't want the standard setup that everybody in the world has. Maybe it makes sense to kind of offset these a little bit. Why do they have to be in such a perfectly straight little line like that? Why can't we have them off in some way, shape, or form? You certainly can. And I want you to experiment with the different ways of offsetting so that you get your cards looking the way you want to look. You've got to play around with things. That's what it comes down to. So in this card, we've got a representation of all elements of crap. Contrast. Does that red pop off of the white? Yes, it does. I can read everything clearly. That font kind of, but you can read everything. You can see what it says. You don't have a problem determining which one's which based on the color. So contrast is good. Repetition. Have I repeated elements? Everything's red, so I've repeated that. I've repeated the font in 2 different places. I've repeated the heart in multiple places. So I've got repetition. Alignment. Currently, not really in alignment, but if I'm back here, I'm in alignment. Proximity. Are the things that belong together together? Yes, they are. So that's exactly what I'm looking for out of this. So this is what I want you to understand about Illustrator more than anything. These are vector shapes. They do not work as pixel-based graphics like what you saw in Photoshop. If I zoom in on these shapes as close as I can, I'm not going to see pixels. The only times you see pixels inside of Illustrator are when you're working with JPEGs or image files inside of Illustrator. So everything in here is vector, everything in here is scalable. Just to give you a quick example, these are images over here. If I zoom in close enough here, I will see pixels. So anything that you create that's specifically in Illustrator using paths, using shapes, they can scale as big or as small as you want to scale. Now, I know this is a review for a lot of you. You remember Illustrator, and Illustrator wasn't that hard to you maybe. But this should give you a better understanding of the fundamentals of Illustrator. As we move forward, you should be able to see some of the more advanced techniques, some things that you might not have seen before in Illustrator. So, finish up this file, take a screenshot, and turn that into today's lesson.